Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this session by our CEO. But let me introduce myself again. I am Sana Sachdeva, a community enthusiast for online communities. And of course, I am so excited to learn about this new era of communities, which is Communities 3.0. So tell me, do you all know that the most visited online communities are those that offer members truly engaging experience and a value for the time invested? But creating such engaging destinations requires very careful planning. I hope you all agree with me. Now, anyone who has created an online community and has had the chance to maintain one knows that it is a tough nut to crack. And it might be easy to create an online community, but maintaining it, keeping up the engagement, retaining customers, and upholding the community's progress is definitely not. To make a community thrive is a lot of effort for the community manager, especially in 4 weeks. And that's what our next speaker will be talking about. Folks, I am so happy to invite Pablo Gonzalez to Community Refocus as our keynote speaker. Pablo is a community enthusiast with more than 10 years of experience in the industry. He's known for generating $40 million worth of business for his customers through his podcasts and online communities. His vision for leading with value is what keeps him motivated to strive and create meaningful customer journeys. So here's Pablo speaking on From Zero to Community in 4 weeks, a strategy even your CFO will love. Take it away, Pablo.
Thank you, Sana. I really appreciate the introduction. I would love to see. You know what? I just turned on the chat. I would love to see interaction in the chat. Let me know where you're from. Like I think this is this idea that I'm presenting internationally from a company from India, and the international collaboration of all this is really cool. Thank you, Gazidi. Thank you for having me on. Like like she was just saying, right? It's tough to be a community manager, and what I find the toughest thing is to justify your worth, right? Like we all know this. If you're here, you understand the value of community. You understand the fact that it is, this like nuclear reactor of awesome things that happen. But we find ourselves very often in these conversations of what is the value. And that's why I hope you like the title, right? Like real hook pointy, awesome thing to draw people in. Oh, cool! I see people. Oh man, Jose from Guatemala, man. I'd love to go to Guatemala. Venia, my good friend, is in the house. I call her the community scientist. Lisa, good to see you. Sarah from the UK. Kim from Indianapolis. This is amazing. We got Canada in the house. I love Canadian people. Never met anybody from Canada I don't like, just for the record. All right, I'm gonna get going because I only got 15 minutes. Boogie Down Bronx. Let's go, Rachel. I like it. So, hook point title, right? Because the value of community is this thing that we're always defending, right? We're always defending it. We're always like fighting for it. And nobody believes in the value more than myself. And we really need to elevate this conversation. And I think that where community is headed is this mass acceptance. But for right now, we need to make it something that we solve immediately because the value is there. I first found the value of it let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Yeah, cool. The value of community hit me at maybe one of the most important moments in my life. My older brother, who's 8.5 years older than me, struggled with pancreatic cancer for 2 years and lost that battle. And at his funeral, 1,200 people showed up. And I looked around this church at that moment. Probably the hardest moment in my life, right? Up until that point. And I thought to myself, it doesn't matter what I think of, the Roman Catholic institution, which I've been a part of my whole life and I've had a funny relationship with ever since I was a teenager. I looked around at those people and I thought, these people are my community, right? These people that have been here for the last 2 years have helped us in a way that nobody could possibly, like no other value could be more valuable. In this moment, they're carrying me and my family. and the value of it just sunk on me. And I thought to myself, no matter what I think of the church, I could never leave this community. And for whatever reason, the next leap that my brain made was, oh, that just solved for churn, right? It just solved a business case. And I was like, wait a minute, community has a business case here, right? Like it increases lifetime value of somebody being a part of whatever you're doing. And then I thought, if that has a business case there, and organized religions, utilizes this business case, what are the other business cases? And I started thinking, I feel like people that buy Harley motorcycles, if they buy another bicycle 2 years later, they lose all their friends, right? That happens, right? Apple people can't leave it because they're part of this community, right? I started seeing it over and over again once it entered my frontal cortex. And that's when I set off on this mission, right? I've been 8 years really just trying to prove the value of community. And the first thing that I started doing, luckily I had gotten really, really involved with local charities before that. And I had formed these like different young professional groups. Those are the first communities that I had built. Formed these young professional groups. And I immediately thought to myself, I can leverage the stuff that I'm doing to host events and meet the most connected people in town. And I started doing that. And then at some point I thought to myself, I was kind of pigeonholed in my own company. And I thought, let me know if you can see the screen, right? This isn't Zoom, it's a different platform. So can you see my presentation right now? I thought to myself, man, I can leverage. Thank you, Kim. I thought to myself, and thank you, Eddie. I thought to myself, how can I leverage these people that I have as a small audience to get in front of others? And at first, it started just in meeting very fascinating people in Miami, and then I started using it for business. I was in the construction industry, and I thought to myself, man, if I can put a developer that's developing something interesting on a stage with a politician on the board of one of my charities, and invite my young professionals to it to talk about the importance of the thing that this project is going to accomplish for the city, not just the project itself, and pair them together, that creates value. And I started becoming a business developer by leveraging this like small community of people that I had built. And then I just didn't shut up about this idea of like value aggregated business development. And I just started chasing it. And 2 years later, I got the chance to be the VP of corporate strategy and business development for a small startup. And it was a really tough, I just jumped into like a real tough business, real like hard situation, and turned it around by reimagining these like small events as like these like Zoom events that we started doing in 2018. And then by the end of 2018, we had turned it around. And at that point in 2019, I decided I'm going to build a business out of all of this stuff. And I figured I can sell community. I took a 90-day purposeful pause. I went to a bunch of conferences, made a bunch of friends, and I left there thinking, community is the future of business development, and I'm going to sell this thing. And after those 90 days of like taking it easy, trying to figure out where I want to be in 10 years, I went off to sell it. And what I realized was nobody was buying it, right? Nobody was buying community at the time. Like I couldn't talk about it as community. And I got this really great advice from my mentor and my business coach now, this guy, Jerry McNamara, when he told me that if you want to sell anything, you got to solve a Monday morning problem, right? So we kind of iterated through what is the Monday morning problem that I can solve that leads to community. And in 2020, I cracked it, right? We started this community in 2020, I hosted my own podcast, and I also hosted the podcast for a client that I sold. Hey, listen, if we start this like live show, and we bring our clients together to talk, your clients, and we use that as content, right? Like what he really wanted to do was he wanted to show up, showcase his awesome team, showcase the things that they care about, and create content on the internet that would make things easier for his salespeople. And I was like, we can do this by highlighting your clientele and turning them into a community. And we did it, right? So here's the proof, right? 2020, I was the host of 2 podcasts. One was my podcast, The Chief Executive Connector, Run of the Mill Podcast. The other podcast became the Not Your Average Investor Show, which was this project that we embarked on with a company called JWB Real Estate Capital. It's a turnkey rental property investing company They basically sell you cash flowing rental house as an investment asset already working the way you would buy a bond, right? So really fascinating product. They've been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal a couple of times. They're like the category kings of the asset class, and I'm all in on it, right? I've bought 3 of them since. But here's the key, right? Like similar amount of downloads, right? Started around the same time, similar amount of episodes, similar amount of downloads, but huge difference over here, right? 61 emails collected, 2 clients made for my business, 65K in revenue. That's pretty cool if you talk to like a small business owner of like your podcast led to 65K in revenue, but it really pales in comparison to what we did with the Not Your Average Investor Show, collecting all these emails and at the end of the day, leading to $46 million worth of revenue in 2020. That was it, right? But this is not a presentation about how do you launch a great podcast. This is a presentation about how do you build a community. And here's the real community. So we started in 2020, by end of 2020, December 2020, we had a fan appreciation show. Person after person was coming on the show talking about, I feel like I'm a part of a community. This has added so much value to my life. This is why I'm doing business with JWB. And a couple months after, the lady right here on the bottom left with this beautiful smile, Jen Filzen, we call her the fairy godmother of the Not Your Average Investor Show community. She decided to just throw up a flare and say, hey, anybody in Northern California want to meet up? Come to my house. And these 5 people gathered at her house. This gentleman over here on the left with the face mask on, he wasn't a JWB client. He was just somebody that had been paying attention to the Zoom calls, was part of this community. Guess what? Like 30 days later, he was a client. And that gave us the signal that, okay, this is real. We're going IRL right now. We're not just doing these Zoom calls. We started enabling things, letting Jen, we call her the fairy godmother, host meetups wherever she went. And this happened over here on the right. This was about 6 months ago now. 70 people traveled to Jacksonville, Florida from all over the place, from California, New York, Alabama, wherever, right? Texas. Literally just for like a tour of downtown Jacksonville, because we talk a lot about downtown Jacksonville, and to meet the people that they had been spending the last 2 years in this community with on their own dime, just for a happy hour to hang out. So that's the real community. And the lever of it all was what we call an internet talk show, right? So the beauty of the talk show methodology is that if we're solving this Monday morning problem, right? Like we believe as community builders that relationships are the atomic unit of business, right? And a community at scale is this like interconnectivity of relationships that really add value. And if you're doing a talk show, you see here, it drives all these different vectors of connection. Right here, I think this is Oprah, right? She's having this like great conversation with somebody that she gets close to, a celebrity, and that adds value to her brand. And on her stage, over here in the audience are people that all showed up to experience it together. She's building relationships one-to-one on the stage, but one-to-few in the audience, and the audience is building relationships with each other. And over here on the television, they broadcast it and it goes out one to many, right? So like the ROI of relationship building when you're doing an online talk show is enormous, considering that you're creating content that allows you to like scale that message and send it out. And we developed this methodology around the online talk show that we ended up coining a relationship flywheel, right? So if anybody reads Jim Collins's books, let me know, right? Good to Great famously coined this term of a flywheel that you want to build your business on. A flywheel is this mechanical contraption that at first you turn it and it's real heavy, but the more you turn it, the more momentum it gains. And at some point, it starts giving itself its own momentum. Yeah, thank you, Benny. I appreciate your appreciation of the flywheel. It starts gaining its own momentum, and eventually it just like has this astronomical leap. And Jim Collins analyzed all these different flywheels that these businesses have, like Amazon and all these other and Facebook and all these other businesses that are the biggest business in the world, Apple, biggest business in the world. So when it comes to the relationship flywheel, we chop it up into 3 kind of things that move the flywheel: value, connections, and content. And the idea is that relationships are driven by value, right? You connect with people that are valuable to you and you are valuable to them. So if you can co-create value with people that are important to you, right? If you can have a conversation with somebody that you want to meet about stuff that people that you want to serve want to talk about, and co-create that value with each other, then you have the opportunity to nurture the connections of everybody that shows up. We're going to get into that, right? And then if you're nurturing those connections and you're making content around nurturing these connections and this value that you're creating, that content adds value to that interaction that initially happened on the stage, which means more people come. So there's more nurturing of connections, which means more better content, which means more value, right? So it keeps on going. And in the middle is this stage, is this community. And I'm going to break it down. I think I got like 10 more minutes. I'm going to break it down real quick for you. Just the basics of the value proposition and the connection, right? So when it comes to the value, it's got to be obvious. To get somebody to show up to a Zoom call, right? Like to get you all to show up to this thing right now, there has to be something in it for you, right? So a couple of obvious things that we like to talk about, right? It's you want people to be having these conversations that are not just about your product. Your product is only one part of what the journey that they're trying to accomplish, right? You want to be talking about the whole journey and things that help them within the context of you being able to add that value. So how you name it really, really matters. The positioning of the show is really important. At first, JWB wanted to call this thing the Rental Property Investing Show. That didn't really work out because it's kind of self-limiting. Not a lot of people are going to show up to that because that's not what they care about. So we called it the Not Your Average Investor Show. Why? Because that name gives the audience something that they self-identify with, and it gives the guest that you reach out to, it's like a compliment, right? So when you're naming the show, you want to cross that intersection where it's like when you invite somebody to be on, they're not like, what's this thing about? Why does it apply to me? You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. You don't think I'm an average investor? That's sweet. I'm in it, right? So like it'll help you get bigger people onto your stage, and it'll make that clear. And then folks that are just like, hey, you know what, man? I'm just the 401k thing, the stock market thing, cool. But that's everybody's doing that. What's the not average thing I want to do? Sana, am I running out of time? Oh man, well, I feel like we started a little bit late, right? All right, I'll jam through this real quick. And then finally, you got to have a hook point, right? Like you came to this thing because I made a very, very clear hook point of what you're going to gain from it, right? So when you're driving connections on the stage, there's 4 levels of connection. There's the host to the guest. That's that one-on-one. That's that special moment of taking someone out to dinner and really finding out about them, but on a stage, so it adds extra value. Host to audience, talking to the audience, making sure that you're there. Guest to audience. This is the stuff that people don't start to understand, right? When you're clarifying a Q&A concept, you add context to what they're saying. And that allows the guest to give a better answer, so it's better for them, and it allows the audience to be seen and be part of it. And then audience to audience, right? Trying to get Dave and Ilker to be friends because of something that they said. That's what ends up driving the community. And then the content piece is repurposing. It's relationships at scale, right? So you need to create thumb-stopping content when you're creating content for social media feeds, because nobody's going to get to minute 15, like minute 1.3 of your conversation if they don't stop the scroll. And people scroll the length of the Eiffel Tower every single day on their phone, right? So once you have that figured out, you make a process for speed. The process that allows you to create speed is you take a video recording that you get into a transcript. You use the transcript to highlight the parts that you want to get out. That then goes to a video editor. Video editor comes back, puts it on something called a batch sheet, a batch board that has the file. It has a space for a headline and it has space for descriptions, right? So now a writer can just go through and write the things they have to write. Then it goes back to the editor to finish it. And then it goes to the social media scheduler to distribute, right? So that way, if you're just one person, maybe you have a video editor, you got to do all this stuff. But as you grow, you're able to like slot it into people's jobs and you get to scale yourself out of the equation. So that's how you repurpose content for scale. And what happened at the end of 2020 was that we realized that these $40 million worth of value, we could trace back to 30 people, right? It was the 30 people that showed up every single week that provided the social validation, that got on calls with people that told them, oh no, this is real. They were telling their friends, they re-upped and got back in. So that gave us the idea at Be the Stage of like, what do we need to do with our show to accelerate this point of just 30 people, right? That's really approachable. To just think 30 people in a community can drive that much value is very empowering. And we came up with this, the cohort-based online course, right? If you can shortcut to getting 15 to 20 to 30 super fans showing up to your show, now you've accelerated this mechanism and this social validation that drives all the value. And the cohort course is great because you are a group of people that are going on a mission. They're going through a journey together, right? That bonds people. It creates a ritual, right? They're showing up to the same place at the same time every single week. So they're indoctrinating into coming to the show later. And the Monday morning problem. cash flow, right? Like it can fund the thing that you're trying to create. So we did it, right? We created this online cohort course, we launched it, and we adapted our show to follow all these tenets. And here are the results, right? Like my old podcast in a year made 65K. This we started in February, and thanks to doing it, like we rebranded B2B Community Builder Show, right? It's not about me, Chief Executive Connector. It's about people that want to be B2B community builders. They want to, anybody that I'm inviting on sees themselves as a community builder. And in just these 6 months, the revenue from that we have attributed to this is 202K. So way more than the revenue in a full year of the first tactic. So it works, right? And I want to invite you to, if you want to check it out, you want to be part of the show, it is a live show that we do on Mondays. Scan this thing, and I hope that you're there. But really, what I want you to take away is the Monday morning problem thing, right? Like, you don't have to follow this exact methodology, but what you really got to think about is, let's add tangible values and attribution of how does this community fund itself, right? Like if you add this like online cohort course, right, you're able to reach out to people in the courses, in your clientele, right? Like if Grazidi wanted to do this, they could find their super users and launch a course with them where they're highlighting them on a stage, already co-creating that value, going towards making it monetization, and it then creates this like group of Avengers. You don't want to be Superman, you want to be the Avengers. And once you have that, then you have the nucleus of a community. And if you launch it in a course and lead it into a content stream that keeps people showing up every single day, it can lead to the revenue that will pay for the entire program. All right, that's it.
Thank you so much, Pablo. These insights were truly amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for all our viewers, next up is a panel discussion where we are going to explore the ultimate technology infrastructure for communities 3.0. So join us there.